Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode as I take you back to 19th century in Belmont County, Ohio, USA. The murdering 13-year-old Louisa Fox. Thomas David Carr was born on March 6, 1846, as the fourth son in a family of 5 boys and 3 girls. His father, William Carr, was abusive and treated him harshly during his childhood. When Thomas was 3 years old, his family started moving around West Virginia, living in places like Woods Run, Fulton, Center Wheeling, and finally settling in North Wheeling. As a child, Thomas often got into trouble and was known for fighting with other kids in the streets. He made some bad friends and took on tough jobs, working for people who worked on the river, in brickyards, and in the coal mines. In 1854, he was sent to prison for reasons that are not clear. Carr claimed he was friends with John H. Burns and his partner, Oscar Myers, who had murdered a woman named Mary Montany. Burns was sentenced to death, while Myers received a life sentence. During a visit to the prison, Carr tried to give Burns poison to end his life, but Burns was too scared to use it. Soon after, the family moved again, this time to Belmont County in Ohio. When he turned 16, Carr joined the 16th Ohio Infantry and served for 3 months in West Virginia. Afterward, he enlisted for 3 years in the 18th Ohio Infantry. Even after his time there was up, he joined another unit. Throughout his military service, Carr often got into trouble and was arrested multiple times for misconduct. On 2 occasions, he was sentenced to be shot for breaking the rules. Once, he even had to dig his own grave. President Abraham Lincoln took pity on him and pardoned him. The first murder Carr admitted to happened near Greenleaf Mountain in Virginia. He had wandered away from his unit to drink alcohol. While he was laying in the woods, a local man tried to arrest him. In panic, Carr shot the man in the chest and ran away. The next day, the man died from his injuries. Later, while in prison in Columbia, South Carolina, Carr learned that a man named Edward Beringer was trying to join the Confederate Army. Along with 2 friends from the 14th Ohio Infantry, they strangled Beringer. After being released, Carr rejoined the 18th Ohio Infantry and was sent to Mississippi, where he shot 2 Confederate soldiers, one while he was on guard duty. After finishing his time with the 18th, Carr joined the 4th Ohio Infantry and served without much trouble, except for one incident where he shot at a prostitute named Annie Whalen. During the Battle of Franklin, Carr claimed he killed and robbed 2 men. He later fought in Wilmington, North Carolina, where he shot at Confederate sergeant from behind a log and stole his clothes. Another time, he killed a soldier from the 84th Ohio Infantry after the man tried to escape while Carr was supposed to be guarding him. Carr also said he was part of a group that raided a supply shop near Pittsburgh, Virginia, where they killed the shop owner. While near Raleigh, North Carolina, Carr and a group of 15 soldiers discovered that a federal soldier had been hanged in the basement of a prominent southern home. When they arrived, they found a wealthy plantation house but no men inside, only women. They searched the house and eventually found the soldier hanging in the cellar, dressed in Union blue. Angered, the soldiers set the house on fire, watching as the women escaped. One of the girls, just 17 years old, got her dress caught in the flames, but was saved by the men. However, they then brutally attacked and tortured her, leaving her for dead in an orchard nearby. The next day, when Carr heard about the attack, he said, "The men who did that ought to be hanged." Afterward, Carr was guarding a house in Raleigh when he shot a man who was trying to break in. He also had an incident on a steamboat traveling from Morehead City to Fort Monroe. where he threw a black waiter overboard for refusing to give him food. While in Baltimore, Maryland, Carr tried to ride a streetcar without paying. The conductor noticed him and tried to kick him off, but during the struggle, Carr nearly severed the conductor's ear. When the driver tried to help, Carr stabbed him in the stomach, and the man died shortly after. Carr blended in with the crowd and shaved off his mustache to escape capture. In Newark, Ohio, after finishing a bottle of whiskey, Carr threw it at a stranger standing on the platform, causing a serious injury that split the man's skull. At that moment, a train full of soldiers passed by, and Carr jumped on, escaping justice once again. When Carr returned to Wheeling after his army service, he found work at a brickyard for a man named James Sweeney, and later for James Bodley until May 1867. One night, he snuck away from work. The next morning, while wandering around town, he met a German traveler named Joseph Eisel, who had just arrived from Parkersburg on a steamboat called the Express. Eisel asked Carr to help him kill his friend, Alois Olrich. As they traveled along the Hempfield Railroad, Eisel attacked Olrich with a hatchet, the same hatchet he later used to murder another man in Parkersburg. Afraid he would be attacked next, Carr hit Olrich with a rock. Eisel then finished him off with the hatchet. After the murder, they searched Ulrich's pockets and found a lot of francs and some paper money. They split the money, with Carr taking the larger share, and they went their separate ways. Carr later claimed he saw Eisel enjoying himself at a place called Pemberton House. After the murder, Carr felt uneasy and considered turning himself in, worried that Eisel might blame him during the coroner's investigation. However, that never happened, and he never saw Eisel again. Feeling haunted by his actions, Carr thought about using the money from the murder, but decided to join the Methodist Episcopal Church led by Reverend Ball. For a while, he felt better with the support of the community. But soon, he became restless and started talking in his sleep due to fear of being discovered. He decided to leave Wheeling and never return. Carr then moved back to Belmont County, where he met a 13-year-old girl named Louisa Fox in Swellsville. She worked as a housekeeper for Alexander Hunter, a local coal mine owner who also employed Carr. Carr quickly became infatuated with Louisa and began to stalk her. When Louisa and her parents told him she was too young to marry, he tried to convince her parents to force her into marriage. Rejected by both the family and Louisa, he became furious and decided to kill her. He stole a razor from a shoe shop owned by Alexander Williams and headed to Miss Hunter's house, where Louisa worked. He lied to her, saying her parents wanted her to visit her grandparents. When he asked Louisa to marry him again, she refused once more. Upset, Carr drank about 4 bottles of hard cider, making him very drunk. Learning that Louisa was going to visit her grandparents, he grabbed the stolen razor and waited by a large oak tree. But then he changed his mind and decided to find a gun to shoot her. He visited 2 houses asking for a gun, but neither had one. While back in the fields, he noticed some tracks and realized they belonged to Louisa. Carr ran up a hill and waited until he saw Louisa walking along the road with her little brother, Willie. He hid behind a fence until Louisa spotted him and started talking to him. They talked for a long time, both eventually breaking down in tears. Louisa kept saying they couldn't marry because her parents disapproved. Carr then told Willie to go down the road and that they would follow him soon. After some arguing, they started walking, with Willie about 10 yards ahead. By then, Carr had made up his mind to kill Louisa when they reached the ravine, but they continued chatting. He asked her if it was enough for a man to commit a crime, and Louisa cried out that she wished for death because of all her problems. Hearing this, Carr grabbed Louisa by the arm and walked her toward the ravine, asking if she was ready to die. Louisa begged for her life, but it didn't help. When they reached a gutter, Carr pulled out the stolen razor and slashed her neck, cutting a deep 10-inch wound across her jugular vein. He then made 10 to 12 more cuts on her neck, one on her hand, and the final cut on her breast. After leaving her body, Carr climbed the hill, thinking about cutting his own throat near a white oak tree. But then he decided to return to Sowersville with a gun to kill Miss Hunter. He realized he was being chased because Willie had told their father what happened. Carr knocked on doors, asking if anyone had a gun to kill a rabbit, until he finally reached Mr. Young's house, where Mrs. Young gave him a gun. Now armed, Carr cut through the woods and walked along the same road where he had followed Louisa, feeling weak and slow because he hadn't eaten. He soon saw a group of people gathered at the murder site, looking for him. Noticing many people coming and going from the Fox home, he decided to take a closer look. As he passed by several of the searchers, he cocked his gun, ready to shoot if necessary. When he reached the kitchen window, he saw Louisa's body being prepared by doctors. He felt a strange urge to kiss her and shake her hand, but had to wait because people were still inside. Watching them, he noticed how pale Louisa looked and thought she was the most beautiful corpse he had ever seen. Despite feeling miserable, he decided to hide in a nearby bank until morning. Around dawn the next day, Carr came out of hiding and returned to his lookout spot, thinking about going back to see Louisa's body again. However, he was afraid there would be too many people and they might recognize him. Instead, he decided to tie his gun to a rafter with a handkerchief, positioning the muzzle against his heart. He arranged a string so that pulling it would fire the gun and kill him instantly. When he pulled the string, the bullet struck him to the left of his heart. Carr fell on his back and checked to see if the bullet had come out, but it hadn't. He then got up and walked about 30 to 40 yards to a spring to get a drink. Soon after, he heard someone, likely the Fox family, screaming, "Murder! Murder! Murder!" This panicked him, and he grabbed the stolen razor, cutting his throat and jabbing it into his windpipe, nearly severing it completely. He fainted from the blood loss but survived and was quickly taken to court. In June 1869, Carr was put on trial for the murder of Louisa Fox and was found guilty. He was sentenced to death for his crime. His lawyer filed an appeal, but during this time, Carr attempted to take his own life again by cutting one of his veins. On the day of his execution, Carr was resigned to his fate. While waiting in his cell, two girls who admired him came to visit. He gave them a photograph and some silver rings, asking them to remember him, and they promised they would. Once he was led to the scaffold, Carr began to pray and sing hymns, asking God to welcome him after he died. He then made a long speech, sharing his life story. He talked about how he was treated harshly as a child and urged future generations not to follow his footsteps. Carr blamed his many crimes on his heavy drinking, saying, "The bitter cup they call whiskey has brought me here. It ruins any man. Whiskey is what has brought me to this moment, standing here as a condemned murderer, about to face eternity. Please, take my advice and get rid of it. If you banish whiskey, you will banish crime. Look at the prisoners, the poor people, and the gallows built to hang me. A soldier who fought for 5 years to defend our country. Keep liquor away from our citizens. If you banish whiskey, you won't have wicked men like me to execute. I pray that God will shut down the bars. Everyone, pray for this." After finishing a short prayer for the many crimes he had committed, the trapdoor beneath him was open. His neck didn't break immediately, and instead, he slowly strangled until he died. Once doctors confirmed he was dead, Carr's body was buried in the local paupers' graveyard in St. Clairsville. His execution was notable as it was the first legal execution ever carried out in the county. Some people were unsure about Carr's confessions regarding other murders before his execution. He didn't provide specific dates for his claims, and some of his statements were proven to be false. For example, Carr said he had shown the police where John H. Burns was hiding after the murder of Montany. However, this was not true, as many of Burns's co-workers testified that he had not hidden at all and was actually arrested while he was at work. Regarding the murder of Olrich, Carr claimed he had crushed the man's head with a rock. However, Justice Johnson pointed out that the skull wasn't broken, except for the area where Isol had hit it with the hatchet. This raised further doubts about Carr's credibility and the truth behind his confessions.